Hi, everybody. I'm Caroline Leavitt. I'm here with my long COVID cough for another episode of A Mighty Blaze. A Mighty Blaze started during the pandemic when bookstores were shuttered, writers lost their tours, like me and many others, and people were just needed contact and community. It started out just as me and Jenna Blum, two women writers in yoga pants, except I don't wear yoga pants, which Jenna does. I wear blue jeans. And we've grown from just the two of us to 30 passionate volunteers as well as us. And we've interviewed just about everybody from John Irving to Elizabeth Strout to George Saunders. And today, Meg Serino, Annapurna. This is a book I absolutely love, and I think you will too. So let me just introduce her and read you some of the quotes. Okay, Meg Serino earned a certificate of creative writing from Stanford University and an MFA from Bennington. A novel excerpt, Denial, was published in Narrative magazine, and she was a top 25 finalist for her short story, Thumb Into My Palm, in Glimmer Train's Short Story Award for New Writers. Annapurna is this amazing book. It's about a young woman who must venture back to Nepal and Annapurna after 20 years to confront the truth behind her best friend's tragic death. I just want to tell you that if you all look to the right, there's a comment section. Don't be shy. If you have comments or questions, pop them in the chat. Also, we at A Mighty Blaze like everybody to go to independent bookstores. So go to your favorite to buy this. If you don't have an independent bookstore you love, I've put up a link for bookshop.org, and they will get you to your latest, or you can just do it online. Okay, so here are some of the outrageously great raves from Lauren Groff. Annapurna carries some of the rare air of the Himalayas in its prose, a novel that's layered, large, and heady with complex and overlapping emotions of desire, guilt, love, rage, and complicity. Meg Serino is a wonderful new writer. Her debut novel is thrilling, and that it is. Here's another one from Jill McCorkle, another fabulous writer. Meg's debut novel, Annapurna, is a vivid, spellbinding trek that will hold readers in suspense throughout. The escalating threats of nature, second only to those who harbored secrets and betrayals. And finally, there's a blurb from this other writer who is actually me. And I said, set against the mind-bending beauty of Nepal, a woman sets out with a group of trekkers to scatter the ashes of her one-time best friend, along the way confronting long-buried secrets, startling truths, and herself. An immersive, gorgeous read I didn't want to end. And that's the truth. So welcome so much, Meg Serino. We're so happy to have you here at the Blaze.
Thank you. Thank you. My gosh, that was beyond.
No, it's exactly what I feel like we have. Thank you for the comment. Renee is here from North Carolina. Renee, this book was just published. She asked a question. Amanda McKee is here. Hello, Amanda, and some other people. So my first question is, I hate the question that writers are always asked, where do you get your ideas? Because if we knew, we would have no trouble writing our next books. But the question I do like is one about what was haunting you or troubling you or just obsessing you so that you felt this was the book that you had to write.
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, before I wrote this, I think I was sort of jonesing for an adventure, and I thought, I'm going to go on an adventure and I'm going to be inspired. And when I decided to go on this Annapurna trek, I thought, I'm going to have so much time while I'm trekking. I'm going to be able to think all my thoughts and come up with characters and a plot. But no, that didn't happen. Instead, I just was sort of trying to take that next breath, that next step. And that was all I could think about. So when I got home, I think what is first and foremost always in my heart is about love and about relationships. And that, per usual, was very much on my mind. And I think I wanted, to write about all the different kinds of love that's out there and how memories from the past can play such an oversized importance in our present lives. And sometimes they're not even, based on what's real.
That's right. That's very, very true. So I also wanted to ask, everyone always says it's the journey that's important, not the end result. And I think that's also true. They also say that the road to happiness always lies in what you want, not in the getting. So we have Livy on a treacherous journey. And you told us that your particular journey when you were climbing that mountain was treachery free. So I wanted to know, how did you feel and how did you feel changed from that journey of yours? Because Livy is so changed.
Wow, another really great question. So that's so interesting. My trek was, just beautiful, and we did have some cold weather at the like a little dusting of snow, but otherwise, like literally drama-free, tragedy-free. But it was a really interesting time for me personally because all three of my kids were, my youngest was in college. And it was the first time that I had really traveled on my own. I was with a friend of mine, and I didn't have cell service. And
wow,
it was, we had sporadic cell service, but it was, not very good. And I definitely like to be responsive to my kids and to be there for whatever they might need. And it was really one of the first times I felt very disconnected, and what that was like for me. So on the one hand, it was very freeing because I got to do this incredible trip and trek that I had never really felt, comfortable doing. And on the other hand, I really had to, I was surprised by how, hard it was to be so far away too.
Someone's asking, would you do this again?
Would I do another trek?
Yeah.
Oh, I have.
So, you have. How is that different?
That was in Patagonia, and it was different in that it wasn't my first foray, and doing something like that, I was a little more prepared about what it would be like psychologically and physically, but it was more comfortable because I think I knew what to expect.
One of the things that I loved in the novel was that Mo, Livy's one-time best friend at the time, her journal was like a real character in the story. And just like we want characters to grow and change and arc, her journal grew. Her journal grew and changed and arced. And I wanted to know, was this your intention? And how was that like writing her journal? Where did that come from? Did you know it was going to be there all the time?
I did know that it was going to be there all the time. That was one of the first things that I thought it would be interesting to have Livy read, the truth and see her friend for who she really was, because she had a whole vision of who this girl had been. And it wasn't really, it wasn't really real. so I wanted her to do that. And at one point during one of my revisions, it was suggested not to have, the journal. And I was
Oh,
sort of
no, 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 no.
wait, no. But it was really fun for me. I have to, writing that journal, I have to say, like, this whole process of this particular book was incredibly fun for me. I mean, I got to be in the mountains every day that I sat down. I mean, there is a lot of sadness and, tragic things that happen. And those were not easy to write, but in general, it was really fun.
How many revisions did you do?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. I mean, I probably did at least 5 or 7 like big revisions.
Yeah, that sounds right. Oh, you have another question. Hold on, I'm going to actually show it. Okay. Renee is asking, how long were the treks? Yeah, I'd like to know, how long were so you slept there?
So, in Nepal, I think it was about 13 days or so.
Wow.
I can't quite remember, but I think that's right. And Patagonia was a little less, maybe 9 or 10. But yeah, they were both fabulous, very different, trying to figure out what's coming next. But there'll be something.
Did you yourself keep a journal?
No.
No. Okay. Do you?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. I wanted to talk about female friendship because the book is so much about that. What we believe about our friends, how we think we know them, how they know us, and what makes a friendship intact and what changes it. Could you talk a little bit about that in terms of Mo and Livy without giving anything away?
Well, I think different friends come into our lives at different times. And I think Livy being, I was going to say being the person that she is, being the character that she is, I think, Mo had a sort of outsized influence on her life. And therefore, she had sort of a outsized influence in her present life. And I think, I was doing a lot of research and I was reading a lot of other books, about female friendships. And being a woman, obviously, like, I do think, particularly in different times in your life when you're young, there's an intensity that,
right,
is just stays with you, whatever kind of relationship it is, it just does. Which isn't to say, I was just gonna, mention that, I mean, my closest female friends have all been made in the last 20 years, but.
I wanted to ask you, throughout her trek, Livy discovers that her friend Mo was not who she thought she was, which made me wonder, do you think that anyone or anything can be viewed through the same lens after 20 years? Because doesn't how we change in our lives make our views of those who were once important to us change too, either to deepen our feelings or make us think, what was I thinking of being close to that person?
Yeah, well, I agree entirely. I do think how we view past experiences, past friendships and relationships definitely change as you change and
Right.
grow older. But I think one of the things that I think about now and is very much looking to the past with a little bit of grace
Right.
and forgiveness, for yourself and for the other, people in your lives, because, youth is, you're young. You're going to make
Yeah.
mistakes, and that's kind of life.
We were talking about stories of survival before we came on to the blaze. And I was telling you how my husband and I, if there's a movie about somebody stranded on a mountain or in the forest or in the deep ocean with sharks around, I'm the first one who wants to watch it. So I wanted to know, why do you think we're all, and most of us are, fascinated by stories of survival, especially like in this novel? It's really a story of survival the second time around, which sort of implies that Livy didn't get it right the first time.
I am obsessed with stories of survival, and in particular true stories. I've read all the Shackleton polar things, and sailing around the world. And for me personally, I think it is that we can all say, like, this is who we are, and present yourself to the world in a certain way. But when you're in extreme circumstances and life is on a line, I think your true self comes
Right.
out, for better or worse. And you may be shocked at how you respond, because you've always thought you would respond differently.
That is so true. That is absolutely so true. I really do think that people find themselves in nature, especially when you do things that are scary up to you. I'm not talking about, going up climbing a mountain with just your bare hands. But I do remember being in Hawaii, and there was this huge waterfall over all these rocks, and you could swim there. And there were lifeguards, but it looked really dangerous. And my son kept saying, "You have to do this with me. You have to do this with me." And I was so terrified, and I almost didn't do it. But this little old lady who was swimming in her little life jacket came over and said to my son, "Make her do it. Make her do it." And he did. And it was the greatest thing I ever did in my whole life, because it was terrifying and breathtaking and amazing. And even with a life jacket, it was just an incredible moment, an incredible moment. So I want to ask you, I'm always interested in what writers know when they begin and what they discover, mostly because I'm always helplessly hoping that whatever you say is going to help me in my life. So
you don't need the help. You are so fabulous.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
What did you know when you started this book, and what did you discover? Again, without giving too much away. Like, if you could just say, well, when I started this book, it was about A, and by the time I got 3/4 of the way through, I realized, no, it's also about this.
So I can say this. When I first started, I knew that Livy wanted to have some kind of secret. I wanted her to have some secret that was going to affect her marriage, affect how she viewed her future. But I did not know what that secret was. And I was sitting in my friend's apartment in the city, and she's a writer, and we were chitty-chatting, and I was like, what should be her secret? And I'm not going to say what the secret is, but she came up with the idea, and I just ran with it.
That's great. That's absolutely great. At one point in the novel, a character says, "All fires burn out, leaving their ashes behind." And I thought that was really interesting, because ashes actually bring wonderful new growth for the soil. And it's interesting, too, that her scattering ashes actually brought new life to her life. So I wonder if you can talk about that whole feeling of, life coming out of death and new things coming out of tragedy. And
well, death, as you know, was definitely quite present in this novel. And, you know, one of the things that I really also have been thinking about lately is how life goes so quickly, and
Oh, yeah.
anything could happen that could just change everything forever. And the people that we love are here right now, and they may not be tomorrow. And, you know, to take advantage of every minute. And that was my, you know, when she's in the plane going home and she's trying to talk to Bun Woman, and you know, who really has this, you know, she's quite a bit older, and she has this idea about death and love. And it's sort of like, you know, love who you love, and, you know, you may die tomorrow. So just sort of,
That's right.
that's what's important.
That's right. That's right. Annapurna has a whole lot of secrets and betrayals in it. And I was thinking what was so interesting is that also nature holds secrets and betrayals. There's avalanches, floods, devastating cold. And I was wondering if you felt that nature was trying to force us to pay attention, or do you feel that nature doesn't really care about us at all?
You know, it's interesting. I mean, until you just said that, I think I've always sort of, and how I was writing about it in the novel, I think I was always of the belief that nature is indifferent, that it is, you know, we're feeling all these feelings, you know, beauty or terror or whatever it is, but nature just keeps going. And I do think that that is true. However, I really like what you said, that, you know, nature wants us to pay attention, because yes, you know, all these like incredible, I'm looking out the window right now and there's this, you know, really vibrantly green tree, and sort of like, yeah, pay attention.
I think nature does, because I think we're all connected. I was just reading that now scientists are thinking that fungi, mushrooms might have consciousness, because they're all connected under the ground by these, I forget what they're called, mycelium or something, where they communicate through that. And I thought, of course, they might force us to pay attention because we're screwing it up, and everyone should sort of not do that. So anyway, I thought this novel was absolutely haunting, but what's also interesting about it is it's also a haunted novel. You know, there's such a feeling of longing and regret. And there's a line in it that I loved, which was compassion instead of regret, forgiveness instead of longing. Can you talk about that, please? I just love that line.
Well, I think, you know, again, it really is about how one looks back on their life. And it's so easy to regret, you know, and I've actually been thinking a lot about regret lately. And I think, you know, to be honest, I don't know how you get to be my age without regret, but also it's sort of like, it doesn't serve any purpose
That's
for
right.
anyone. And so to look back and instead feel compassion for, you know, what's happened, and, you know, whatever mistakes you've made seems to me to be more beneficial for everybody.
Exactly. Can you tell us about your writing process? Do you just sit down and write? Or do you have outlines and, you know, how do you write? What's your process like?
I mean, as we were chatting before, in the past couple weeks, I have not been very prolific, but, you know, typically I just sit down every day, every morning, and write for a number of hours. And, whether it's a weekday or a weekend, I just do it every day. And
Okay.
that's pretty much it.
Do you have any tips for the writers out there?
The only thing I'm such a, I don't think I could give any tip other than saying, just to keep doing it, to keep at it, and keep writing, and that's it. Don't give up.
That's true. It's the writing's the only important thing, the work. All right, so let's talk about this cover. This cover is absolutely gorgeous. It's kind of like, it looks like snow in the lettering. It's against this vibrant pink cover. Talk about the cover to us. I know a lot of writers get approval of their covers, and some people don't, and some people get sort of approval, but sales always seems to have the last word. Was this cover idea your idea, or were there other images you were thinking of?
Oh my gosh. I was very lucky that I did get approval, and I was incredibly lucky because I have 3 kids, but my 2 daughters were very involved in this cover and helping me. And I would ask them, and then I would email, my editor, and because I really wanted. I personally am not necessarily a pink person, but
it goes well with this cover. It's startling and you know why? Because graphically, it's so powerful. Usually when you see a pink cover, you think, oh, it's going to be I hate that term chiclet, and I never want to say it again. But this is not it, because of the strength of the graphic. And also this is kind of a gray pink. It just works beautifully against the white.
Well, that is entirely thanks to my daughters. And one of my daughters was actually both of them were asking their friends to weigh in. So there was,
oh, that's great.
My younger one had a whole group chat thing going. It was
that's wonderful.
Fabulous. I was very, very lucky.
So as a truly obsessive person myself, I always ask writers, what's obsessing you now and why? And not the state of the world, because everybody's obsessed by that. What else?
Yeah, definitely not the state of the world.
Yeah, that's...
So I guess I would say, what I found in my writing is that I tend to, even without realizing it, I'm underneath it all writing about the same thing. I'm
so glad you said that. Yet it's true. I always feel that when I start a new book. It's sort of like, wait, it's a total different time period, but it's the same. So do you feel that writers have things that they are just naturally obsessed with, and it comes out in story?
I think even subconsciously, it's just always coming out, and crazy.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. So this was a question that someone asked me once, and it took me by surprise. So I'm hoping it's going to take you by surprise too. What do you do for fun?
Oh, well,
right? It's a surprising question.
I mean, easy. I love to hike. I hike we have a 1-year-old puppy, and yes, and she's finally she'll listen to me and run around off leash in the woods with me, and it's finally fun. But that is and I love my friends, so I definitely spend time with them. But the thing that I love to do more than anything is be with my kids and my family, and just have everyone together and just cook and hang, and that's it.
Oh, Renee wants to know, what type of puppy?
It is a bulldog mix. It's called a Leavitt bulldog, and she's incredibly sweet.
Is she there? Is she there? Can we see her?
Well, she's downstairs.
Downstairs, okay.
Yes. She's in her, little space right now.
And Robin wants you to know, fun, yes, fun. We're all allowed to have fun. Yeah, you have to have moments, especially now. So I want to thank everyone who was here, who came to listen in and who asked questions. We always love that. Don't forget that I put up a link so you can order Annapurna. It's a fabulous book. It's absolutely a fabulous book, and it's actually really good to read if it's a hot, sweltering day, because you feel sort of cold when you're reading it, which is thanks to Meg's expertise in writing. I want to thank Meg so much for being here and for writing this wonderful book. And I will see all of you next time. Actually, tomorrow we have Mary Morris talking about the Red House. So I'll see all of you tomorrow and next week. And Meg, you stay on because I'll say goodbye to you privately. Thank you all so much. Bye.